And it's now my pleasure to introduce to you John Blyzinskyj, CEO of Elemica. Who is Elemica? What do you do?
We are a software company. We're based just outside of Philadelphia. We have about 250 employees worldwide. We provide software for supply chains for the process industries. So oil companies, chemical companies, plastics, tire and rubber, ag chemical.
And how old is the company, and how long have you been with the company, John?
The company was formed in 2000, and I have been the CEO for about 18 months now.
Now, why did the board want you as the CEO?
Well, I was approached about 18 months ago by two board members. The company had gone through a period of about 4 years with relatively stagnant performance. I have a reputation for turning around and scaling out businesses. I've done it quite a number of times before. A couple of the board members knew that, and so they approached me with regard to regrowing the company.
It sounds like you are not a native Philadelphian. Where are you from?
No. So I'm a dual national. I'm both a U.S. and a British citizen. I hold two passports. I was born in near Cambridge, England, and I tell everybody I moved to Cambridge, Massachusetts, near Boston.
I see. So you're a commuter to Philadelphia.
I am indeed, yes. My family live just on the outskirts of Boston, but my office is here in Philadelphia. But I do an awful lot of traveling. So I actually am only in the office about 100 days a year. The rest of the time I'm actually on the road visiting clients.
Your company was interested in you because of your ability to turn companies around. How young were you when this first started to show up, this desire and ability to make things change for someone to a growing situation?
I guess I can answer that in two ways. Firstly, when I was about aged 11, I had a strong desire to, earn money. Earning money for me as an 11-year-old meant that I could buy things. Mm-hmm. So I had a very strong desire at age 11 to kind of buy a hi-fi, and I had to save up. And so I got a part-time job to do that. In terms of real business,
a part-time job at 11?
Well, in my summer vacations and Christmas vacations, I had a job.
Okay.
I had a very strong desire to earn money so I could buy things that were out of my reach.
And the next reason?
I worked in small businesses as a teenager, so prior to college, in some businesses which my family owned, and one of the businesses which my father owned and ran was a paint distribution business. And I can specifically remember at about age 15, I was working there in the summer, and I suggested to my father that maybe we wanted to get a second brand of paints which we were going to distribute. And he said, well, I don't think that's going to be possible. And then after I badgered him for a while, he said, well, why don't you just ring up the company? So I found out the telephone number of the other company, and I got through to the sales department, and I tried to persuade them to allow us to distribute the paint in the town.
All right. Is that at age 15? Jeff?
John, what did you learn from your family, your grandfather, your father, and your cousin that contributed to your formula for turning a company around and your management style?
Well, I think coming from a family which had several different businesses which they ran in different areas, I kind of learned growing up about the mechanics of business. So specifically, running a small business, or as my father and my cousin did, you learn that you have to get involved in the real mechanics of the day-to-day operations. And so I've strived to do that in my professional life with large corporations, really understand the basics of the value proposition and how it's put together. So I think that's a real fundamental element of success.
John, I have a three-part question for you. What brought you to the United States? Who did you bring when you came to the United States? And better yet, when you came to the United States, what did you learn that helped you work well with your company?
Well, firstly, I had a desire to live in the U.S. from an age of about 5. A very, very young age. So even though I grew up in kind of in a small town in the middle of England, very close to Cambridge, I actually grew up knowing a lot of Americans, thanks to the U.S. military. There was a U.S. Air Force base about 10 miles away from where I lived. I got to know the U.S. pilots, their families, and they came from places like Kansas City, San Antonio, Texas, Ohio, and so that was from a very young age, it was a big interest.
So, and then what was the one thing that you learned when you got here? I think was Rob's question, to help you kind of acclimate yourself.
Well, firstly, when I grew up in the UK or in England specifically, where there's a lot of different cultures, and specifically when I first started to come to the US in the 70s, there was a significant amount of different cultures. So it's actually harnessing.
So what's that have to do with helping you grow your business? Though the fact there's a lot of other cultures there.
Well, all the businesses which I've run since the age of about 30 have been international businesses.
So you think that experience with dealing with different kinds of people has really helped you grow your business?
Oh, absolutely.
What do you mean? Give me an example of that.
Well, the buying behavior in Europe, for example, is very different to the buying behavior of corporate clients in Japan and Korea and China. So they're very different between those Asian countries, even though from the US perspective it appears they're very much the same. In Europe, the buying behavior of French clients is very different to German and English and Dutch.
John, how important is communication and transparency in running a corporation as the CEO? You mentioned a couple of board members were interested in putting you into this position. How important is communication between the CEO and the board and the management and the transparency that you need to have?
I spend about 10% of my business life talking to our board members. I have 5 board members who are European, and I have 3 who are based here in the US. So there's a significant amount of cultural difference in understanding. There's very different attitudes towards governance, towards how businesses are run in Europe versus the US. So a big part of my time of communicating with my board members is not only communicating directly with them about the business aspects, but also what is expected here of a company based out of the US is actually often very different to what is expected of companies, say, for example, in Germany or in France. So I have to do a lot of business translation.
Peter?
John, in turning around businesses, how do you bring out the best in your team, and where did you learn that?
I think, first of all, you have to ensure that you are surrounded by very proficient people. So one of the things I learned very early on is you have to be very clinical in terms of analyzing the folks that you are really dependent upon and know who the key folks are who are going to be really driving a lot of the performance as you go forward. Secondly, it's recognizing the differences in terms of ability and also cultural elements. Remember, a lot of my business is international. A lot of my personnel are within the company are international. At least 50% of our personnel are not based here in the U.S.
What are the most important values that you hire for?
Raw ability and a desire to work hard. So it's less important for me that someone has very significant, if a new hire, a key hire, it's less important to me personally that somebody has really deep understanding of the specific role or position that we have. It's more important to me that they have the ability to learn that and be successful in that. So as long as they rough fit, then the other elements actually outweigh the actual direct experience.
John, you've been in the CEO role for 18 months. What's the future looking like for Elemica? Are there more opportunities in the future? Were there more opportunities yesterday? Tell us what you see ahead of you.
There's far more opportunity for us in the future compared to the past. We added about 17% additional employees, so 17% increase in headcount in last year. We're probably going to add around 12 to 13% in the coming year, and that's a reflection of just the pure top-line growth that we're seeing in the market.
John, we just have about a minute left, but how would you summarize how you go about turning a company around?
The first thing you have to understand is what is the core value proposition which your offering, your product, in this case software, provide to your clients, and then have a deep understanding of who those clients are, those new clients, and you need to monetize. You need to explain in financial terms how your product adds value to your clients. If you can do that, the rest is just execution.
What's the most exciting part of your job?
Seeing the team members within the company, the employees, grow in their roles and getting personal satisfaction or career satisfaction out of that. That has become more important to me in the later part of my career, shall we say, compared to pure financial growth success of the company.
John, do you spend any of your spare time with any fundraising or charity activity?
Yes, I do, actually. I've been on 3 different charitable non-profit boards over the last 10 years. I'm currently between, because of the amount of time I spend at work, I had to give up the last one. But hopefully within the next 12 months, I'll be looking for another seat on another non-profit board.
John, what's the website address if someone wants to know more about your company?
Elemica.com.
Elemica.com. That's Elemica. We've been speaking with John Blyzinskyj, CEO of Elemica.